Hey folks, welcome to Market Technical Analysis by InTheMoneyStocks.com, your leader in pure technical analysis, avoiding all that Wall Street hype. Today, Tuesday, May 13th, 2008. Well, Tuesday came and went today, folks, and we saw basically what we expected yesterday and had talked about. The market had a pause day after the big push up on very, very light volume yesterday. And as we talk about yesterday, it's good to note that yesterday, from what I've heard, was the lightest volume day in the markets of the year. So it just shows you that from the perspective of volume leading a market, and you need the volume behind it for a move in the markets to hold, that's a very bearish sign, unfortunately, that the markets were up yesterday on such a rally day on such light volume. Today in the markets we had slightly heavier volume, but it was not heavy by any stretch. It was just a little more than yesterday. And a lot of that volume came in the morning when we got retail sales out, you got Walmart news out, and there were a bunch of these other factors, economic news, in the morning, which shaped the market early in the day. And then we just got kind of in that choppy trading. And then the interesting fact of oil controlling the markets took over by midday. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into this, because it's really fascinating at this stage of the game. And I'm going to talk about InTheMoneyStocks.com and how we view this overall oil trade, as we believe the market has topped in oil right around here. All right, so let's get into the intraday ES charting. Early in the day, you saw a lot of whipsaw. Later in the day, you saw a quiet market as volume depleted here. And again, you can see that right away. This is on the retail sales, all right? You got some retail sales out at 8:30. The markets took off with a vengeance higher here. You got a nice topping tail right there, which, look at the fall you got off of that topping tail. You got a little bit of a bottoming tail, which yielded a nice push into the double moving average points of the 50 moving average and the 20 moving average on the intraday ES. And as you sold off here, again, you got a bottoming tail and a nice little push up. You got a double bottom, W pattern, pull up right there to form a little W. And the V pattern came right back in here, at which point we saw a nice move higher and a little pullback into the moving averages again. And after that, a beautiful little move higher. And again, you got a little bit of a tail on the top, which caused some selling. Now, this is all whipsaw choppy action. I mean, that's all this was today for the most part. And again, really the big moves of the day came very early. Look at the volume over here. The size of the volume was really between 9:30 and 10 to 11 o'clock. Right in here is where I'd call the majority of the volume for the day. After that, right around 11:30, volume died out most of the day. You got a little uptick into the close, which is natural. You get people positioning themselves for tomorrow. Now, again, we talked about retail sales coming out this morning. You had a little bit of a boost on that, but then a hard sell-off. And then again, the market just traded in that choppy sense. Now, what's been going on here with oil? Because everyone always wants to know about oil. We called the top on oil last Friday, which was the high. We had a nice pullback yesterday. You had a little reflex bounce today, as it's still trying to find that topping area. But nonetheless, you have what's going on in this market, a level in oil at $125, or at least that's the way it seems. Now, every time the market or the oil stays above that, the market will move inversely to oil. And this is what we've been noticing intraday. Every time oil climbs 50 cents higher, the markets will sell off. Every time oil drops 50 cents or so, even if it drops 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents, you're seeing the markets all of a sudden get a little bit of a bid. All right, so very, very interesting to note the intraday patterns here in the markets. And again, just to note that, folks, you saw oil up today, and anytime oil was able to push up in the intraday period, you saw immediately a little bit of a sell. Once oil closed at 230 on the futures, you had the markets overall get a little bit of a bid, knowing that oil had closed for the day, and we actually had a mixed close in the markets, and we're going to go over that very, very shortly here. All right, and just to quickly touch on what the markets did today, you had the Dow down 44 points, the S&P was down half a point, and the NASDAQ was up 6.5 points. So a very mixed bag on light volume today, kind of that pause day you always anticipate after a monster move in the markets like we saw yesterday, even though it was on very light volume. Now, again, we're talking about crude oil here, because crude is probably the biggest manipulator here of the markets as we've seen it. Ever since it got above 125, the markets are continuing to move inversely. So if you could imagine, let's say oil is ticking up here. Imagine as that oil is moving up intraday, the markets are beginning to sell off, and vice versa. As soon as oil ticks down, the markets are getting a bid. And that seems to be at $125 or greater. So it seems once oil moves down below 120, and that's what we've been noticing here, is oil really up until 120 didn't have much of an impact on the overall market. It's really since it reached that $125 mark where really it has an inverse relationship with the overall markets. So our anticipation is that should oil drop here over the next couple days, you may see the markets get a little bit of a bid, but only until oil gets around 120. Once it seems to get 120 or less, at that point the markets will trade as they naturally trade. Now, there are some other facets going on here. You have some economic news tomorrow morning at 8:30 that's going to be watched very carefully as it's inflationary, and you're going to watch for inclinations that this market is really going to get hurt on inflation. Between food and energy, we all know what's going on out there, and it's not a pretty sense. The question will be, does it influence other materials? Does it influence other commodities out there, whether it's, goods and services? Does it come into play in that respect? And that's what we're going to really watch tomorrow when the CPI comes out. And the CPI, Consumer Price Index, will definitely have a play on it. So again, just taking a look at the daily USO chart, this is where we called the top, and we're going to see if that holds. All right, we had a nice move down yesterday, a little bit of a retrace today, and we're going to in this tight range here where we think the top is forming. And again, as soon as it breaks the low of yesterday, you're going to see, in our belief, a move down to this range on the USO. So again, the USO is the oil fund, and we are watching for further declines on that over the next week or so. All right, so again, watch that CPI data tomorrow at 8:30. That's going to be a key to this market, as well as oil. Oil will definitely come into play tomorrow, when oil opens and really gets moving tomorrow. The markets will react accordingly. All right, let's take a little look at the daily SPY chart here. I really want to focus on this. Yesterday, you guys know we moved right into the 20 moving average on Friday, which again is sizable support. We always talk about first hit after a while of the 20 moving average, and you can see we hadn't hit it for a while. First hit, you get that little bit of a retrace bounce. Today we had a basic side move in that, slightly down to flat on the SPY here. It was actually up 3 pennies today, so a sideways move, and we're going to watch for consolidation before a possible another drop in that SPY index. Options X week is Friday this week, and Friday is Options X, guys. And tomorrow, those of you that pay attention, it's Whipsaw Wednesday. Wednesday, notoriously over the past, especially 6 to 12 months, has been the most volatile day of the month. All right, this is where they get everyone going one way in the markets. Like, let's say the amateurs all believe the market, they're all bullish. They all have calls. They all have bought their calls. And then Whipsaw Wednesday primarily switches that on you, or Thursday, and it flies it the other way to get everyone off guard. Then they obviously unload their calls, buy puts, and before you know it, it goes the opposite way again. So it's just a crazy, crazy week of options. And again, that's just the big boys playing their games, and you have to understand that that's what's going to happen. So keep in mind that over the next couple of days, you're going to have whipsaw. You're going to have the market probably swinging one way or the other pretty drastically. Is a good possibility. So just be ready. That's we tell you guys more of that so you can be conservative and you can understand what's going on. If you see the markets gap up and then sell off hard, or gap down and rally hard, that's really what's going on there. They're getting everyone on the gap down to be short, and then they rally the market hard, and vice versa. If they gap it up, they get all the amateurs to go long right away, and if they sell it off hard there, that's really just chasing all the amateurs away and taking their money. So that's the games they play. We saw a little bit of a pause on technology. We talked yesterday about Baidu and Research in Motion and Apple. For the most part, those stocks were mixed today. Some up a point, some down a point, but no major moves. They've had monster moves lately. You can look at Apple's chart here. Look at Apple. I mean, this is just an unbelievable move, and this tells me it's getting tired, believe it or not. The volume is beginning to lighten up here. That means buying pressure is coming down a little bit. And again, you're going to probably see it could go a little higher, no doubt about it. There's that 3G phone that they're expected to release. I think it's a sell on the news at least, if not even before then. And you probably will see Apple come back. Not that much. You probably see first support right around the 20, wherever that happens to be at that point. But nonetheless, the extension move of this type of move, of this caliber, is just an unbelievable move, and it does need to come in. All right? So again, folks, tomorrow, the big keys are going to be oil, and the big key is going to be the CPI at 8:30, in our opinions. Watch for those because you're going to have inflationary issues right there with the CPI, how much of that is creeping in to the market. You're also going to have, on the oil front, is oil going to go up another dollar or two and smack the markets down as it climbs, or do we see a sell-off on oil, which could give the markets a nice little bid? All right. last but not least, I want to touch on gold, which continues to fall here, folks. The GLD was down $1.60 today, and we had talked about a week ago about this moving right into the 20 and watch for a retrace. And sure enough, you had a resistance point right here hit, and you're seeing the fall that's ensuing. Gold today was down $15+. All right, a big drop on gold, just an overall whipping, really, of the GLD. And continue to watch for weakness here. It's very possible you see a move as low as this area, the 200 moving average. In the very least, you'll probably retest this level right here at the double bottom. But nonetheless, look at this fall on gold. Now, oil is the opposite. Oil's continue to move up, so that's also part of it. You have to expect that these commodities, if you take out the geopolitical stuff, you're going to have oil come down hard. And there's been a lot of geopolitical news that's out there causing oil to go higher here as well. All right, folks, have a wonderful day. Remember, the webinar is coming up on Saturday. Also, the swing trade alerts in the chat room. Come join. We'll be glad to have you. Take care.